Dr. Tracy McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. You are a board certified psychiatrist and you're also a functional medicine certified physician. And I can't wait to dive into lots of juicy questions about how what you do can help us feel better, have more success, show up as better parents, and just all of the things. So, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here.
Thank you. So, before we get started, I know not everybody knows what functional medicine is. So, can you just give us a high level explanation of what that is and how it differs from modern Western medicine?
Yeah, functional medicine is really a different lens for practicing medicine. It's what we call a systems-based approach. So, in conventional medicine, everything is very siloed. Like there's neurology and there's gastroenterology and there's cardiology, and people are generally not talking to each other. And patients have this experience of everything being very separate. And functional medicine is about looking at the person as a whole and looking in a different way. So systems would be like communication in the body, which is like neurotransmitters and hormones, or detoxification systems, or transportation, which is like, blood vessels, lymph vessels. And it takes into account some very different things that are ignored in our conventional model, which is looking at bio individuality. So everybody's a bit different with their genetics and how that's expressed. I know, what a concept, right? And looking at the role of, for example, the microbiome, which we can talk some more about, but all the bacteria in and on us that are doing a lot of important things, takes into account our environment and the impact on us. And that means not only like the air we're breathing and the water we're drinking, but our food intake, our nutrition, our relationships, our light exposure, our sleep, like all these things vastly impact the expression of our genetics. So it's this kind of recognition that all of these factors are actually very, very important. And also recognizing that chronic conditions have multiple causes. This is another very, very important concept. We are stuck in a very this idea in conventional medicine of always looking for the cause of something. And it's really not the cause when it comes to chronic things. It's multiple things. So people are always asking, well, what's the cause of autism, or what's the cause of Alzheimer's? You're not going to find the cause. There are many causes, and they're not the exact same in each person with that diagnosis. So it's recognizing that you have to look for multiple factors and address multiple factors. And then the other thing that I think that is really different about functional medicine is that the levers we can, push on to change those factors, a lot of them are nutrition and lifestyle changes. And yes, we use lots of supplements, and we will use medications as appropriate, whatever tools work best. But actually, these dietary and lifestyle factors are very, very impactful. And the research shows that. And so it's still just medicine. It's just, to me, it's how medicine should be practiced for any kind of chronic condition, if you really want to get to the root causes.
I love that. And it's through this podcast that I learned what functional medicine is. And as we were talking before we hit record, I think it mirrors how this holistic approach to entrepreneurship and parenting, how there are so many factors in it, to help us be our best and to be successful. And, I love that you're also pointing out that there are many different factors that assist us to be healthy and feel well. And so you've helped thousands through their healing journey, and you're a mom and you're an entrepreneur yourself. So what was that point where you realized that conventional medicine wasn't enough?
Yeah, well, let me take you back a little bit. I went into medical school very excited about finding out why people get sick, what goes wrong in the body, and how do we fix that. Before medical school, I was an engineer. So how things work is like very much my jam. But, and I really got to enjoy that a lot in the first few years of medical school. However, as time went on in my training, it began to be sort of reduced to identifying, looking at the symptom sort of presentation, the matching that group of symptoms to a diagnosis, and then matching that to a pharmaceutical. And that became kind of the main game. And my drive of asking why does someone get this? Why does someone get that? A lot of times there was not an answer. Like, and as a psychiatrist, I was asking, why do people get schizophrenia? Well, we don't know. End of conversation. And that was not satisfying. And working with patients and having the primary tools be medications, these medications, especially I think in psychiatry, but it's not limited to psychiatry, have a lot of side effects, sometimes limited efficacy in certain categories. And patients are saying, gee, am I going to have to take this for the rest of my life? Or they're having to take multiple medications to try to cover the symptoms and maybe still having symptoms, maybe having a lot of side effects. So this is frustrating for them and was frustrating for me. I felt like, why can't we go deeper? What's causing this? And can we try to address that? Well, as I was getting more frustrated with this, I was fortunate to come across the literature on chronic inflammation and the role that plays in the body and how that can manifest as so many different things. And I really was captivated by this, and I did a deep dive, and I got more and more into the research on this and realizing all these things that affect inflammation. So much of this is what we're eating, what we're doing, and we can do something about this. And I started to make changes in my own life and was like, oh, wow, I feel, I have more energy, or I don't have to unbutton my jeans after dinner, things like that, right? It just all kinds of little changes. And I came across the Institute for Functional Medicine and realized there are doctors using these tools and understanding this role of inflammation, and got to train with them. And that led me to finally realizing, what, if I want to practice this medicine that I know now is so powerful, I actually have to leave my regular job, because I was a hospitalist. I was working with inpatient psychiatric patients, so in the hospital, where I can't influence the food, and they are not in a position to implement these changes. So that's when I started to practice and began, first working with people, what they're eating, and then starting to change what was going on in their gut, helping their detoxification systems, helping with their hormones. Everything I added, I saw better and better results. And the best part about it is people being empowered to heal themselves, because I'm the guide, but they are implementing changes themselves and feeling so good that they can do something about how they feel. So I'm fortunate now to be in a place where it's just really, really rewarding work,
Yeah, it sounds like it's amazing how some simple changes can have such an impact on us, especially when we've been taught, take the medication, get the diagnostic test, and that's what results in a change in your health. So now you have me thinking, what are some of the top areas that we need to focus on to feel better for better health? And what are some of the changes in those areas that usually people don't suspect will make a big change? Just like you mentioned earlier, like getting more sunlight, things like
Yes.
that.
There are all kinds of things. And I want to stress that, these changes done one at a time is a baby step. I'm going to mention a lot of things you can do, but don't overwhelm yourself. Just pick one till it's an easy habit, but they add up in a profound way. And so some of the things that can be very impactful, let's start with food. I mean, we know that there's a lot of problems with eating processed and ultra processed foods, and these have a lot of negative impacts on us. They affect our beneficial bacteria in the gut, and they cause us to grow bacteria we don't want to have in the gut, which causes more inflammation, and that just can make us feel really bad. And we know that they contain highly processed carbohydrates, which can lead to blood sugar problems and what we call insulin resistance, which can lead to weight gain and prediabetes and diabetes. And they also contain really bad fats that can be damaging and also inflammatory. So there's just all these ways that the food can make us feel bad. On the flip side, whole foods with good fats and making sure we're getting enough good protein and having a wide array of colorful fruits and vegetables that provide a lot of nutrients. This can be the opposite, and it can lower inflammation, make us feel really great, give us the building blocks we need to make our neurotransmitters, our cell membranes, to be able to detoxify properly every day. So it really boils down with food to like avoiding the processed food and really eating the whole foods with these, healthy fats, which we can talk about more.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any of us realize how much our diet impacts how we feel. Are there any resources that you might suggest for people? Because I think they just feel overwhelmed. Like
Yeah.
we know we're supposed to eat healthier, but I think that is just overwhelms people and they go to what's familiar. So is there maybe a way that you created a new habit in how you ate or
Yeah, I think it gets back to doing the one at a time
mm,
step. So,
yeah.
one of the first things, I think learning about food quality is really helpful. So if you can start with fats,
Mm,
because learning about the problems with like vegetable oils, such as, and they're really grain oils or processed seed oils like soybean oil, corn oil, peanut oil, and even canola oil. These are not good for us. They get oxidized. They cause that increased inflammation through their omega-6 fat content. What we need is more omega-3s, less omega-6, because the American diet is just chock full of omega-6,
mm,
which is like, it's like the accelerator on inflammation. And omega-3s
mm.
are like the brakes. And most of America's running around with the foot on, pedal to the metal with lots of the accelerator is on and they don't have any brakes. They don't have enough omega-3s. You need these in balance. So cutting
Interesting.
out these kind of fats, which you do primarily by, first of all, at home, don't cook with them, don't use them. Use
Yeah.
avocado oil or coconut oil or ghee. And of course, olive oil for like cold uses, like salad dressing, not so great to cook with because it's
Mm,
more fragile. But and then just making that change at home is a great start. And then reading labels, because this is the stuff that's in all these packaged foods.
mm-hmm.
And avoiding those oils is going to be a really, really profound. In a few months with effort at that, you've given yourself an oil change. And that
Mm-hmm.
means change those cell membranes, they're going to work better. Your neurons are going to communicate better.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a much lower level of inflammation just from that change. So I think that's a really, really good place to start.
Right. And I love that you give us kind of this time frame to expect some
Yeah, it's not
change.
in one day. Yeah.
Right. Oh, I know. It's like you start working out and you're like, what? I haven't lost 10 pounds.
Yeah, right.
It takes
That's
much
right. It does
longer
take
than
time.
that.
But some changes can be felt pretty quickly also. So of course, sugar is a huge one, and
Mm-hmm.
reducing
Oh, yeah.
sugar. People can feel very different in a short amount of time by cutting out sugar
Yeah.
and just keeping it to special occasions, like really
Mm-hmm.
making it a treat it's supposed to be and not the dietary staple that many
Mm-hmm.
people are experiencing with it. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you make that change, you
Mm-hmm.
get off the blood sugar roller coaster, as I like to call it. It's
Mm-hmm.
profound. Like people's
Yeah.
anxiety can melt away, their sleep can improve so much, their energy is steady, their brain
Mm-hmm.
fog sometimes is gone, like they can think clearly. And that's a change you can feel pretty quick. Like within a
Mm-hmm.
week, even of making a change like that, you may notice differences.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I'm definitely one of those people within seconds of eating sugar, I just do not feel well. It's just
Mhm.
like, ugh. So
And
I've stayed away from it for a long time.
and most people, that's such a great example you just gave that you notice the difference. I think lots of
Mhm.
people don't know they're reacting because they're eating these things all the time. But once you take
Mm,
a break from them and then you try it again, then you can notice how it actually lands in your body.
yeah. Yeah, and let's talk too about our gut health and how that lends to our mental clarity. I think among moms and entrepreneurs, like we need a sharp mind. We need to perform at a high level. So can we talk about how what we're eating is affecting our gut health and how it's making us feel?
Yeah, that's just, it's so important. So there's a few ways that gut health plays a role here. First of all, there is how we digest. That's critically important because if we're eating these really healthy foods, but we're not digesting them, then we're not absorbing them, we're not getting the nutrients. And there's a lot of people not digesting well. I see it in my practice all the time.
Hmm.
So, simple things that are going to help with that is taking some slow, deep breaths before you eat. Trying not to be like on the run while you eat. not, and this is a hard one for moms and mom entrepreneurs, not multitasking. Try to actually look at the food, appreciate it, smell it, get the body and brain ready for digestion, because that shifts you out of that fight or flight state that you're running around in and puts you into the rest and digest state, the parasympathetic nervous state. And that is when digestion happens. So you're going to really increase your chances of digesting the food well if you can make that shift with your nervous system. And then the other huge part of the gut health impact is the microbiome that I mentioned earlier. So this is bacteria and fungi, and even sometimes, parasites, depending on what's going on in people's guts, viruses. It's all the bugs living in us. Now, what we want is to have a healthy microbiome, and we really want beneficial bacteria to be predominant. We don't want overgrowths of bacteria that are causing inflammation. This is directly impacted by what we eat every day. So again, those whole foods and the colorful fruits and vegetables, especially vegetables with fiber, they are going to be the fertilizer for the beneficial bacteria. And so that is really important, because those bacteria are making all kinds of compounds. They make neurotransmitters, they make anti-inflammatory signals that are absorbed, they're into the bloodstream. These are traveling to your brain. These compounds are even traveling up the vagus nerve, the nerve that innervates your gut from your brain. It's in a process called chemotaxis. It's pretty wild. So this is impacting your brain directly. And so if you've got the right signals coming from the gut, it's going to help you work better. And if you've got the wrong signals coming from your gut, it's going to cause inflammation in the brain, neuroinflammation, which is going to be brain fog and depression and problem sleeping, et cetera. So it's very impactful. So you kind of want to think about it like maybe like a garden you're tending, or even another organ. It's a few pounds, the bacteria in our gut. We need to maintain the right ones to help us be our best selves.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, we just, like you said, we have to begin to have this holistic view of our health and how everything is interconnected. And you also mentioned like our relationships. And so can you talk about how, stressors can affect our health and how we can maybe manage that better to, you know, it's like a chain reaction. It's like when we have this stress, it just causes a host of other health issues. So how can we kind of identify that and work to manage that better too?
Yeah. Well, first, let's talk a little bit about how stress manifests in the body, because when we experience a stress, our body reacts to that to help us manage some crisis. So that means
Right.
cortisol, the stress hormone, gets released, and it does all kinds of things. And it's good in a crisis, but when it's ongoing, it causes a lot of trouble. It'll cause weight gain. It'll cause brain fog. Is directly linked to depression. It's going to cause an increase in gut leakiness to have this stress. And that's going to lead to more inflammation. So, being aware that stress really, really does impact all our whole system. It also impacts our hormones. And, a lot of mompreneurs may be in perimenopause, for example, and that stress is going to have a direct effect on how good our other hormone levels are. So it becomes really critically important to be attuned to this and then start to do interventions around this. So of course, stress is complicated, and it's sometimes the elephant in the room with patients. Like, this is the biggest issue, actually, because it's driving your immune system to be very reactive. It's the cause of many of your symptoms. I can see that with many people. So removing stressors where we can. Like, where is there a toxic relationship that needs to be addressed? Where do we need to get professional help on that? Counseling or coaching. What about are we doing the things that help us be resilient to stress, trying to prioritize our sleep? And I get it, with kids waking you up at night and stuff. This is a complex topic. However, are you even giving yourself enough time in bed? Like, are you setting yourself up for success? Are you sleeping in a dark room? Sleep hygiene. It's really important. Are you getting daylight in the morning that helps set that circadian rhythm that tells your brain this is morning, and not looking at screens right before bed that tell your brain, hey, this is morning. You don't want that at bedtime. That messes up your hormones. So, there's a lot of tools that can really impact the effect of stress, and then getting more resilient around stress and learning how to, not hold it in the body, right? So things like yoga, things like dancing, things like meditation. There's so many wonderful tools out there, even just a little bit done every day, simple breath work, taking, 4 slow, deep breaths a few times during the day just to pause. These actually add up and really can shift our nervous system and help reduce the impact of that stress, help us manage the stress more, and just feel so much better.
Mm. Yeah. And it's like, I know people can also think that, oh, I'm going to go on a run. That's going to help me with my stress and that's going to help me lose weight. And then I'm going to feel better. But what are some of those things that maybe we think are helping us, like running, but are actually getting that cortisol pump going? It's like, especially in the US, I have lots of international listeners, but in the US, there is just, we can't do something just to enjoy it or relax. It has to be productive towards something. And I think there are lots of things that we do that I think are helping us, but really are working against us.
Yeah, I really, really love that you brought this up because I do see this. The thing about stress is that we sort of have like a bucket of stress that we can handle, and then that's overflowing, then we get into trouble. And
Mm-hmm.
so the body views stress from different sources all as the same, whether it's
Right.
stress from an infection in the body or toxins, or it's stress from like marital problems or stress from work. It doesn't matter. And so exercise is what we call a hormetic stressor, which means the dose really matters. So too little is actually a stressor for us. Too much is also a stressor for us. We have to find that sweet spot. And
Hmm.
that sweet spot varies for us from like season of life to season of life, and also even from day to day. Like the day you didn't sleep at all last night, the previous night is not the day to go super hard at the gym. And so I like to give the example of like, it's not the time to train for a marathon when you've maybe just had a baby and you're not getting good sleep and you've got a ton of work on your plate, and maybe you've also got a gut infection or whatever. Like you got to look at the total stress and understand when is it good to do this. There could be another time where that's totally okay to do, but you
Mm-hmm.
have to keep it in balance. And so, especially with exercise, I think enough time for recovery is really important.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually, when the muscle's built, right? Not during the exercise. That's when you're breaking things down. That's the signal for the body to respond.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that can be helpful is to track something called heart rate variability, which like a Aura ring, for example, could do, or I, there's different devices that will do that. But that's kind of a great indication of how, is this a good day to go hard, to go for the
Mm-hmm.
run or not? Because if that heart rate variability is low, it's not a good time to do that. That means your system's under stress already too much.
Yeah. And I think it's a good time to talk about also as women and moms, like what is a good time for us is very different than like I see my husband, he goes out and he does a workout and he's like, and I feel like I have way more on my plate from family and business and all the different things going on. And so I think that we also don't consider that. We like to see ourselves as like, where are we in our cycle? Where, and
Yes, all of these things matter actually a lot for women. It's totally
right.
different. We are not the same from day to day, and tuning
Mm-hmm.
into that is so powerful. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's all kinds of there's some great books on this actually about like working with your cycle and like when
Mm-hmm.
you want to, be kind of out there in the world promoting your business, when you want to be a little bit more internally focused and
Mm-hmm.
doing internal projects, when do you want to rest? And I think
Right.
it's a lovely thing to pay attention to, is our natural rhythms.
Right. Yeah. And I think we often kind of compare ourselves with this masculine perception of progress or productivity wherever it is. And so I like to bring up that we should have a different lens because we're just different. And as you reminded us, even among women, we're all different. We're,
Right. Yes.
So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think having grace with ourselves and understanding like there are these different like seasons of life, and we can get it all done. We just can't get it all done at once, you know. We have to like understand that,
What?
right? Yeah, there's I didn't make that up. I had say that to me, and I was like, oh, that's really true. I just feel that we do have to recognize where we're at, like, and
Yeah.
what makes sense at the moment, and that does take practice, because I think our societal expectation, how we've been trained, is very masculine and very kind of like do all the time. But there has to be, time for, you just think about nature and the seasons, like
Mhm.
winter, there's sort of hibernation, there's sort of gestation, and then suddenly in the spring there's like buds coming out, and it's like we aren't that different than that. We need time where we're nurturing and we're resting, and then time where we're creative and expressing and doing,
Mhm.
and figuring out what that rhythm is for us personally. And then also knowing that that may change next year
Right.
or down the line, and that's okay.
Yeah, and it can depend on the season that your children are in. And
Totally. It totally does.
like, how many naps, or are they taking naps, or, and then the age of social media, the comparison there as well
Mm,
is alive and well. If you're not careful about it and realize you're internally beating yourself up by comparing yourself to somebody else who may not have a thyroid condition or may not have, whatever you have going on, that just makes your life uniquely different. So, yeah.
and I think women already beat up on themselves way too much, so we don't need to add that to it.
Yeah.
But what you just said, I think is so important, is about like being mindful of our consumption of these things. A lot of this is about awareness, right? Like, okay,
Right.
what stressors are on my plate right now? Okay, how do I feel when I consume this social media? Like, there might be certain things on there that are actually really funny and lift your spirits, and that's okay. And other things where you walk away feeling drained and bad about yourself. Okay, so just,
Right.
it's the same with food. Which foods make me feel good? Which foods actually make me want to
Yeah.
take a nap after I eat them? Like, it's that increasing your awareness and your mindfulness is a really, really powerful tool.
It really is that curiosity,
Mm-hmm.
non-judgmental
Yeah,
curiosity.
it's the opposite of judgment, right? The curiosity.
Right. Right. I think it's so important. It's something I always recommend. So for a fellow mompreneur who feels like they're doing all the things that they should do to feel better, but they're still not, what are
Mm-hmm.
some ways that they can be their own detective and increase their awareness about what might be going on with them individually to help them start to feel better?
Well, I think there is some, you can do some more education, self-education first. For example, I have a course called The Natural Mood Solution, which is for people to actually look at these different areas of their life and see, oh, maybe I need to support myself better with my blood sugar, or, you go
Mm,
deeper on the topics we're talking about.
yeah.
Once you're through that, if you're at a place where, okay, I've done a bunch of changes and I've seen a certain amount of improvement, but I'm
Mhm.
stuck, this is where it's good to work with a practitioner who can help
Yeah.
you identify, hey, is there, a hormonal imbalance here? Is there a mold toxicity issue
Hmm.
here? Is there some
Hmm.
chronic infection? And help you
Hmm.
get over that hump and
Hmm.
really get your body working for itself well again, and
Yeah.
healing.
Yeah, I love that. So, why don't you give us like a little sneak peek into what it's like to work with a functional practitioner?
Yeah.
Because, you mentioned some tests, and like, how do you assess what may be affecting someone's health?
Yeah, so it's really detective work, and it's looking, I tell people, it's sort of looking under stones that people have not looked under yet.
Mm,
Many people's experience of going to their primary care doctor with, fatigue or other chronic sort of frustrating complaints is, well, your labs are normal, so you're fine. And that's just so frustrating for people to experience. Those, they're barely looking at any labs. They're looking at, a comprehensive metabolic panel, maybe, and a complete blood count, and that's it. And maybe their thyroid, but usually not a full thyroid assessment.
mm,
So when you work with a functional medicine practitioner, you're going to have a much deeper dive. So the blood work, we're going to look at inflammatory markers, way deep into all the hormones, what's going on with blood sugar in a way that is more than what your primary care doctor will do. Looking at fasting insulin, you might be asked to wear continuous glucose monitor to see what's going on with blood sugar during the day. That's a really great tool. So it's a deep dive with blood work. Different practitioners will do different arrays of testing. I like to do a stool test as well and look at what's going on with the microbiome and digestion and inflammation in the gut. And also a urinary test of organic hormones that tells us about your detoxification pathways and about how well your mitochondria are producing energy in your cells and more information about the gut. So I start with a pretty big net. Now there's even more we can do, but that's a great place to start and to figure out, okay, your imbalances are primarily around detoxification, or your issues are to do with your, metabolism and your insulin and your blood sugar. And, we see the nutrient deficits, and we can start working on those and creating a comprehensive plan that's going to fix these imbalances in the body so the body can do what it's already trying to do, which is to heal. You give it what it needs, but you have to look for what those things actually are. And so you're going to be, you have to be committed to get outcomes too, because you have to be willing to actually change your food and change your lifestyle. But a lot of people are really wanting that. They just need the direction.
Right. Yeah. And the accountability and somebody.
Yes, we all need that.
Right. I mean, and I know too, like when it comes to conventional medicine, you really have to be an advocate for yourself. And I don't know, I think a lot of the trust between what's going on with us and, Western medicine and Western doctors and the way they're trained really is kind of waning right now. So I mean, the tests that you described are more comprehensive than probably anyone who hasn't seen a functional medicine practitioner has ever had. Yeah,
it's true. I mean, it's just, and I feel bad for my colleagues in conventional medicine because it's not like these are bad people. Like they went into people as well. And there's lots of wonderful doctors out there, but the system is pharmaceutical driven. Insurance is, a major factor. People have very short visits. And when you have a complex chronic condition, you can't solve that in talking to your doctor for 10 minutes. It's not possible. The system doesn't support real health. It's like a disease management system.
Yeah. Well, I think, I don't think anybody can deny that there is a paradigm shift around so many things in our world today. And I think that this is just another one of those things that we're beginning to go, maybe the system we've been relying on for however long has not really had the outcomes that maybe we would like to have. So let's look into something more. So can you share with us some of those transformational outcomes that your clients have had?
Yeah, I mean, I see these all the time. In fact, when we were just talking about sugar a few minutes ago, I was thinking about a patient I talked to yesterday who really, she had been really not eating enough protein and having, what she thought was healthy, but it really was still too high carb for her and too much sugar. And when she cut the sugar out and she made sure she's really having protein with every meal, she said it's just been a game changer. She used to get all these like rashes and reactions to food. Her whole immune system has calmed down. Her energy level is steady. She doesn't have that crash after meals. She's sleeping way better. She wakes up energized. And this is primarily from food in this case. Now, lots of other cases that are more complex. I'll give you an example from early in my practice of a patient who had bad anxiety and came to me on an antidepressant for her anxiety. And it was partially treated, but she was still having panic attacks at times. She was someone who loved to fly, and she was no longer flying because of the panic. And she also had irritable bowel syndrome and never knew when she was going to need to rush to the bathroom. So this would really put a damper on her life. And in working together, we found several key pieces of the puzzle, because when you do a real good history and go way back, you realize, hey, your gallbladder getting removed several years ago actually correlates with, about several months to a year later is when this anxiety started. You weren't getting your fat soluble vitamins. Your whole microbiome was affected by this because you didn't have good digestion anymore. And, we did the stool test. We found overgrowth of bacteria. We found some thyroid imbalance. We found the stress imbalance, too high cortisol, worked on these things. And in a few months, her anxiety was gone. She was no longer having to race to the bathroom. The bowel function was normal. She started taking trips. She was living her life. And it's like, that's what's possible.
And thinking about conventional medicine, you would have had to visit, I don't know how many doctors and in different ways and tested different things. I just think that it is so amazing. You can see one person that takes a holistic viewpoint of what's going on. I just think that that's really powerful.
Well, I think people really do appreciate the experience of getting seen in fully and heard fully. And, they also have a lot of ideas of what's contributing. And patients are, when you really take that time to partner with them, they give you lots of clues as to what's happening. Together, you can really make that change, but they're not getting heard. And the people that they're going to are not listening to that and like understanding how it connects, because they don't have that training of the, that functional medicine model that I think is so, you talk about paradigm shifting. I mean, that was like changed my whole world and how I looked at how the body works. I mean, I used to feel like disease is inevitable. I remember in med school, we're all like, oh, I hope I don't get that one when I'm older, as we learn about these different problems, right? And then as I got into learning about nutrition, and I read a book, I just was so impacted by this book called Nutrition and Physical Degeneration, written by a dentist in the 30s who did all this research on diet and cavities. And it's a really interesting story. But I really had this paradigm shift. We are meant to be healthy. So if we're not healthy, there's a mismatch with our environment and what's going on, how it's interacting with our genes. So what is that? Let's find those things and we can shift that. The body's going to do its miraculous work.
Yeah, I love that you remind us that we're inherently healthy. We're just doing all of these other things that we don't realize are just kind of stacking up and working against us. And we're just like, we don't have to succumb to that,
No, and we don't have to settle for it. That's
right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I heard about this interesting study recently where they just took people who are older and put them in a younger environment that they were 30 years prior, and they started looking younger and feeling younger. And so I love too that you have that mental health background, because so much of what is going on with us psychologically also, affects our bodies. And
Totally. Yes.
I,
It's
I
a
have a
two-way
trauma
street there.
background that I had no idea that was affecting my entire life. And
That's
when
right.
I address that,
Game changer. Yep.
game changer. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
love that.
It definitely, trauma is a huge factor on all our physiology. And it's one of
Mm-hmm.
those things, becoming aware and then doing the work. So
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yeah, it definitely is. You've given us so much to think about, and I hope that listeners you've given them a little crack in the foundation to begin to think about their health differently and more holistically. But if you had a takeaway or a few takeaways that you wanted to leave with listeners, what would that be?
Well, just to know that, you can really change how you feel. There's a lot you can do. And this is not to make you feel bad about or that you're not doing it, but the opposite, to empower you and know that Rome was not built in a day. You just baby step your way there, but every little beneficial change you make is going to add up, and keep doing those, keep walking those baby steps, because before you know it, you really will feel different. And don't give up. One change doesn't make a difference in how you feel, because remember what I said at the beginning, it's always multiple factors. So you need to do multiple things to get the system working right. But so worth it, and it is doable.
Yeah, I love that reminder. And too, as parents, we're then teaching our kids how to take care of themselves. So it's so important.
I was just laughing because I was literally thinking that same thing right before you said it. I was like, and you're modeling this for your
Yeah.
children. I have to just share, I'm in a great place where I have a 16-year-old now, and I'm so pleased and surprised and amazed to hear him talk about food quality and caring about, and he's an athlete, so it really directly impacts his performance. But it's like, oh my gosh, you've been like picking this up and actually, and of course he's going to do teen things, but it's like, oh, it's such a good foundation, and it's so worth it because he's just going to be so much healthier, and he is so much healthier anyways.
Yeah. No, it's so true. It is what we do. There's such high stakes because we're just setting an example. So, and then it magnifies our success. When we feel better, we're more successful in our businesses. We're able to solve problems for our clients. We're able to do so much more that.
Yeah, we can live our purpose. Yeah.
Right, right. Exactly. Well, thank you for sharing your purpose with us today. I think it's so important and can have such an impact. Where can listeners connect with you and learn more about your online course and all the things you're doing?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at Dr. Tracy McCarthy, and that's Tracy with a Y. And you can download a free guide that I've created for listeners that's called Top 10 Overlooked Causes of Depression, Anxiety, and Brain Fog. And really, that's for chronic symptoms in general. So you can find that at my website, drtracymccarthy.com/top 10. That's spelled TOP10. And that, and if you download that, you'll get information also about my course, if that's of interest. And for people in California who are interested in becoming a patient, they can go to the website, drtracymccarthy.com.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing all of your wisdom today, or just a small sliver, to give us so much more to think about and to feel better and just understand what a ripple effect that can have in our lives. So thank
You're
you
so
so much.
welcome. It's been a real pleasure to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm going to leave links to everything you mentioned in the show notes below. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.